Welcome to Coopsys TechTalks. I'm Scott Spatz, the president of Coopsys, and today I'm here with Bob DeLisa, our CEO and founder, and our resident AI expert. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Hi, Scott. How you doing?
I'm doing well today.
Good to see you.
Likewise. In this episode, we're going to break down the essentials of using AI in small businesses in 2026, what works, what doesn't, and how to make the most out of AI while avoiding common mistakes. So let's get to it. Before we jump into today's topic, Bob, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and what they should expect to learn today?
For those who don't know me, my name is Bob DeLisa. He's right about that. And I started the company Cooperative Systems, now called Coopsys, back in '93, and helped people get on the internet and did all sorts of things back then. And now there's this new thing called AI. You might have heard about it. I started to get into that. So I've always been wanting to get into new technologies, and AI happens to be something I'm really got in early on with, and I'm really riding that all the way. So love to help businesses use AI both for productivity and for safety. So there's the effectiveness component of AI that really is the driving force, but we want to make sure under our umbrella that we're making sure our clients are implementing it safely and there's privacy and compliance are considered, and all of those things that we need to think about. So what I'd really like to talk about today is what it really means for small and medium businesses, especially in 2026. We're in this new year. So much happened last year in AI, and it's just seems to be accelerating. Almost every week there's some kind of new something AI related that is very compelling. So we're seeing that happening in all jobs, all across all sectors. It's really impacting everyone at different paces. Not everybody's experiencing it the same way, but it's going fast. So we're going to talk about what works, what doesn't, and what you need to avoid.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, it seems as though like the inquisitive phase of AI is behind us, and now people are really looking to understand how they can really use it in everyday life. And that's probably what you just alluded to a little bit, huh?
Yeah. I think what we've done is we've kind of reached a tipping point in terms of the awareness for the everyday person that AI is there. I have an idea what it can do. I've seen examples of what it can do. It's very impressive. It's now, how do I bring that into what I do every day in my business, running my business, supporting my employer, supporting my customers, all of those questions. AI can have a place there.
Yeah. And I think there's some questions around automation because that seems to get talked a lot about when you bring up the topic of AI. So
Yep.
There seems to be a lot of misconceptions out there when it comes to AI for our SMBs and consumers as well. But can you tell us a little bit about what AI is and how it's different and sets itself apart from automation?
Yeah, automation. I'm glad you asked that question. Automation is I would call that the buzzword of the early 2020s, and it has been around for longer than AI. Automation is great when you have to have rules. You need a predictive result every time, and you need it fixed. So those are the kind of things that distinguish what automation is. So you can go back to like the 1950s when you would see assembly lines, and automation has been around for a really long time in one form or fashion. And with computer technology, it's just made automation easier. AI is different in that it actually understands because it's been trained in a very sophisticated manner. I mean, it takes months and months and months to train some of these frontier models. So they understand your intent. And they can adapt and they can even learn. So they really have quite a bit more capability. So I would say when you're looking at an AI versus an automation, an AI is like almost like your friend that can understand you and can help you through complex reasoning and complex scenarios. Whereas automation, it's really there. It's almost pre-programmed and it's there to follow steps to
Right.
get something done very rapidly.
Right.
So both are good. Both are needed, but that's the difference.
Which is really exciting in our world because, as you know, automation has always been a huge component of our business and what we do within our business and on behalf of our clients.
Right.
And now bringing that intelligence to that world of automation just expands everything that we can do.
Right.
In that fashion.
Yeah.
That
So
part of our business.
So Scott, what it does is you can think about automation as it triggers a lot of things for us to be able to again automate and fix and that sort of thing. However, it generates exceptions, and now with those exceptions, you used to always need a human to review those exceptions and take action. Now what you can do is you can actually use the assistance of AI to help you handle those exceptions. Still requiring the human review, but now you can handle the exceptions and the automation. So you really have you've really closed the gap on a lot of any errors coming through your workflow or your pipeline.
Right. So I think most SMBs and most people and most business owners and people who work in SMBs understand that AI provides advantages for them within their own jobs as well as for the business that they work in. But for any of our small business owners tuning in, how can they tell if their company is truly ready to adopt AI? What kind of things should they be asking themselves? Should they be preparing their business for? Should they be doing with their staff? Should they be doing, structurally within their organizations? How can they tell if they're ready to adopt or implement anything AI?
Yeah, that is a pretty full question. So I'll kind of address it on a point by point basis if I can. I think it needs to start on the readiness side to get the organization ready. It's really knowing first and foremost where your data is. Where does your data live? You need to know how old it is, how relevant it is. What's the important stuff? What's the not so important stuff? You really kind of have to have a pretty good control on that and think about that more. Once you have that, you're able to set in places like data sensitivity labels. You're able to determine what you don't want the AI to actually consume when you're actually sharing information. So we call that doing data sensitivity labeling. We use a tool called Microsoft Purview to do that, and that allows you to categorize documents so they're not seen by the AI if you don't want them to be. So that's where you're in control. It's sort of like putting guardrails around what data you want the AI to see and what you don't want it to see. When you turn it on, you'll use a tool such as Microsoft Copilot, and when you turn it on, you are allowing it to see whatever it's allowed to see, which is SharePoint, Outlook, Teams. So think about that. That's all your OneDrive files. If you don't think about where that data is and what data it's consuming, you're kind of going freestyle, and that might not be the best way to do it, especially if you're in a regulated industry, because now you're really exposing a lot of risk that you shouldn't have to. But as far as what I would say, other things to do to be prepared is to document your processes. So have as many processes as possible documented, or at least have a good feel for what they are, so that when somebody comes in, we send in engineers to actually do reviews and studies for what your workflows are, so we can see where we can use AI and automation to improve efficiencies. That's actually something that we would do. Then lastly, another key component is looking at your leadership. Is your leadership in alignment with what the goals are for what you want to do with AI? If you have a team over here that, outside of the leadership that's doing it, but is not getting support by leadership, it's going to fall short. So you need to be aware of that.
Yeah, so kind of making sure it's top down driven, but having your staff integrated in with the implementation and
Yeah.
involved in identifying the use cases.
Exactly. And you also need to have your team like really on board with it. They want to try the new tools.
Right.
You want to encourage that. So it's a culture thing too.
Sure. Yeah.
It really is like, I've heard the term change management, right? Everybody uses that term. That is really key here. You're actually managing change at an organizational level when you're implementing AI. So do everything you need to do to practice good change management.
Yeah. Yeah, and that data classification sounds really important based on, we as businesses typically have data all over the place. And there's so many different places you can store data. We're also quick to just save the document somewhere and then move on to the next task. And there's a lot of sensitive information in those pieces of data. And just turning on an AI engine like Copilot amongst your entire data set is pretty risky unless you do that data classification and understand really where your data exists and who has access to it, right?
You're right. What the beautiful thing about it is the AI can actually help you identify sensitive documents. So you can actually use it in that context. So one exercise that we did before we rolled it out is we actually did do some search and find for where sensitive documents were. We kind of knew where they were, but we also went through that process of identifying that with AI tools.
Yeah, and maybe you want to talk a little bit about the kind of the pilot group that we did when we did our implementation of, our management team and people who can have access to some sensitive information and some of the testing that we did internally to really, put it through its paces before we opened it up to.
Sure. Well, what we did was we opened it up to the executives in the beginning. We used it a little bit at first. We didn't really understand all that it could do in the beginning. When we did learn that, mostly by following what Microsoft's best practices were, we realized that this is a top-down effort. So let's get our leadership team on board with this, which we did. And we went right into the path of identifying, let's do something called restricted SharePoint sites. And we set up on our SharePoint server, only allowed SharePoint and team sites that could be indexed by Copilot, that can be found by Copilot. We turned that feature on, let that run for a little bit, explored that then we turned on email, we turned on Teams chats, and we allowed the executive level team and the management team, and we formed a group called CASE, the Coopsys AI Innovation Squad. We started a team there, and we gave them Copilot licenses. Once we had the governance kind of locked down, we knew where the data needed to live for Copilot to work effectively with the SharePoint sites. And from that, we've been really moving along quickly.
All right, so let's shift a bit. We've talked a bunch about kind of readiness and data readiness and data classification and getting your data ready for an AI tool like Copilot. But what are some of the tasks that a typical SMB can use AI for, right? We just talked about how we need to go about being concerned with setting it up to be ready for use of AI within our data set. But what are the things that a typical SMB can then do once they get to that point?
Sure. Well, first of all, if you're already using Microsoft 365, you're already 70% there. You've used the tools. You're accumulating the data that Copilot is going to use. So you really don't have to do anything more than, once the governance pieces are you have a good handle on that, you turn it on. And once you turn it on, now instantly You can use Outlook. In Outlook, you'll see it appear, and you'll be able to draft great emails, write proposals in Word. You write up job descriptions with ease, like you haven't been done before. So you'll be able to write so many documents, marketing pieces, and everything, anything you think of where you actually have to sit down and write. That's what it's excellent for. It's also great for, and we're starting to use it internally a lot more, is meeting summaries, especially when you didn't make the meeting and you want to get the gist of what happened in the meeting, and you can have follow-up tasks, and that's all summarized in the meeting. It really does a great job. It's like having the world's best note taker at your meeting. It's great for customer intake. We're starting to use that more for onboarding and triage, and we're putting in technologies in place that integrate with our legacy systems to implement AI and help optimize customer support calls. And then also reporting, workflows that we have, internal workflows, such as purchasing and that sort of thing. We can look at forecasting. It can be used for helping to forecast better. Things like SOPs, technical lookups, documentation on the technical side. And also for our security team, you can beef up security monitoring and get early alerts.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful once you do go forward with that whole data classification and have Copilot have access to your entire data set. Just the power of information that it can give you right at your fingertips immediately.
It's amazing.
For any type of work you're doing, document you're trying to create, like you said, or task you're trying to do. Not even just doing the task with publicly available information. It does it with your information.
Right. You do need to license that for Microsoft when you want to enable those tools, which is the integration of your company data, which is in a fully protected setting that way, and also to have it index your chats and index your Teams node. So that license is roughly $23 a month, I think.
Sounds about right.
In addition to what you're paying for the Microsoft 365 subscription, but it gives you that capabilities. If you don't have the license, what you'll have effectively is a ChatGPT like interface, which has full ChatGPT capabilities, but you're really only using the web version, and you're not you're not bringing any of your data into
your own data set.
Yeah, you have to manually put it in,
right?
Like you would.
You have
with
to feed it. You have to train it.
Yes,
right.
And then with that, it just seems to be a better practice to have it embedded into your M365 environment.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we work a lot with regulated businesses, such as in healthcare, manufacturing, financial services. Can you explain a bit, or just talk a bit about how AI can support businesses in those industries?
Sure.
With certain industry regulations like HIPAA or CMMC or say GLBA or any of those kind of frameworks. What are some practical ways that AI can help those businesses stay compliant?
Sure, and this would apply across those regulations. So once you figure out how to do it and how to use those tools, you can meet a lot of compliance requirements. Some of those things would be automating audit trails. So you enabling the audit trail, and now you have automation behind it. So you have an easy way to look up information on an audit basis. Data classification and retention, that's a huge area where AI would help with regulations. Also, in detecting risky behavior early. So you have your security systems that have these advanced AI analytics that can really parse out that data. And then finally, by using those AI tools, it actually reduces human error, because you don't have to have the eyeballs that you used to have on it for the length of time that it would take to look through, gigabytes of logs, essentially.
Right.
You don't want to necessarily have just a human do that.
Yeah, I would imagine
AI.
that by having AI integrated in, that it's capable of detecting compliance issues before they become problems, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, by identifying patterns or having access to logs, information that you're storing, and if there's risks or things that come up that the business is not being compliant with.
That's right. We're looking at enhancing our security tools all the time. We're adding on security products that help us with centralizing that and helping our customer base with monitoring and protecting them so they don't have to worry about it.
So again, just kind of speaking within our SMB market and small business owners that are listening into today's podcast. So what are some ways that you could use AI in a way that maintains customer trust, maybe protects their privacy, ensures that you're a good business to do business with? Say you're in a customer, every business possesses customer information. So how can a business, say, use AI to improve that trust level, that trust factor with their customers?
Sure. Well, I would start with enabling an enterprise tool like a Microsoft 365. So that's probably step one. Getting that Copilot license, which would add to that. Keep that data that you have, that you're generating, keep it in the tenant. Do not let it go outside of your M365 environment for security reasons. You should also might be mindful of roles-based access controls. So that's a real important piece, as well as the sensitivity labels that we were talking about. That's probably a new exercise for most of our clients. It's not something that you do by default.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Right.
but like you'll know that true enterprise, like large enterprises, have been doing DLP for a long time, and they it's very
And
familiar
just to
to them.
interrupt, DLP means what?
Data loss prevention. So DLP is the kind of the family where data classification and data sensitivity labeling falls under. So when I say DLP, I mean it in that context. Microsoft Purview being the main DLP tool that you use to lock it down.
But being able to say to your customers, we've gone through this entire classification process internally to ensure security, integrity of your data that I possess.
Yes.
Your customer information that I possess as a business.
That's right.
I mean, that's a reputation.
It goes a long way.
Yeah.
It goes a long way. You do have to show that you're doing that. So when it comes to audit, you really have to show those audit logs and be prepared to do that. And that's part of the process as well. So it gives you those tools as well.
Right.
So not only to put the mechanisms in place, but also to monitor them and report on them. So that's what the auditors want to see.
Right. Right. And certainly, again, we're talking about some specific industries: healthcare, manufacturing, financial services. Mm-hmm. As it relates to healthcare, I would imagine that goes a real long way in terms of patient data and managing all of that patient data that a medical practice may possess. How can AI help manage patient records better and more securely, and ensure there aren't any HIPAA violations in their practice?
Yeah, so that is a real important area for healthcare practices, especially. You want tools that get into auto classification. So Purview has that capability. Some other tools do that. They look at PHI and they'll go through and they'll automatically label things based on the information that they see. So if they're looking for social security numbers or any private information, patient information, that falls under the PHI definition, that can be auto-classified by the tools.
Based on those types of data strings and
That's right.
it looking for that within the data set, right?
That's right. And it also manages access permissions to the users and to the AI tools. And it's also great for monitoring access that improper access. So somebody who accessed something that shouldn't have had access to that, it'll actually report on that. Then it streamlines documentation.
And combine that with some of the cybersecurity monitoring protections and tools that we as a managed service provider use, that intelligence level just goes up drastically.
That's right. You've just added layer upon layer of protection.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the maybe misconceptions too, as we're talking here across any type of business, regulated or not, is that, maybe some of our audience is saying, I only have a very limited set of resources. I don't have an IT team, or maybe I only have one IT person, or I outsource my IT. Is everything that we're just talking about here today realistic with limited resources, with smaller IT teams?
Absolutely. The reason that is the case is because, as I said, you're probably 70% of the way there just by having Microsoft 365 in place. What you need is a kind of a push over that threshold with the sensitivity labeling we were talking about, the things we've been going over in this, and the exercises you should do. Once you get past that, it really is for everybody. The tool has now been made accessible to everyone. And at that point, it's getting into specific upskilling, how to prompt, what kind of things where does AI hallucinate, using human judgment when it's necessary. So having your organization at least culturally adapted to it through either your own internal team, that's another suggestion I would have is take some of your people who are a little more curious about the technology and are kicking the tires with it and are trying different things, put them into a group. Call it a steering committee, call it committee, whatever you want, whatever you'd like to call it. They become your guidance system, and they usually have a direct line to the executive team to help with things like policy and things like, here are some ideas what we can do to improve processes in the company. That's what we're doing internally. We're doing that on a regular basis. We meet once or twice a month to go over that internally, and we're trying to get all of our clients to actually think like that. They don't have to be technical, so we need to kind of get them educated on, this isn't a technical thing. This is a change management.
Right. That's a great
exercise.
Point. That's a great point to make. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And that really you're giving them kind of some empowering abilities to do that. And that's really a big value for us to provide.
And getting that insight from people, boots on the ground, if you will, or the people that are, in the trenches doing the work day in and day out, and getting their insight on how they can foresee where AI can help and where automation can help. All right. Thanks, Bob. We really appreciate you taking some time today to share your insights and expertise.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Scott.
Be sure to join us for the next episode of Coopsys Tech Talks, where we'll dive into more AI tools and platforms and discuss how to keep your data safe and secure, and cover even more topics that matter to your small business. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.